And now I will share my screen and I will go pretty quickly through the PowerPoint. It's just some pretty standard information for this project. Pretty much the same as from the first community meeting, and that recording is available on the website as well. And I'll do a walkthrough on how to locate the project website. So I'll go through this PowerPoint. It has some of the updates, the renderings, and then I'll go over some questions I received in the last few weeks, and then I'll open it up for questions and answers. Okay, can everybody see the PowerPoint? Great. Again, thank you all for attending. This is the community meeting, the second community meeting for the accessibility parking at Forrester Park and Weirs Park. Quick project summary. This project is already budgeted in our budget as a CIP project. We received grant money for this project. So this is to cover the design and the construction. Grant funds, meaning it's pretty much free money from this grant source we're using towards this project. The project is to provide one accessible parking stall at each park. This is not a project to construct sidewalks along the streets in Forrester Park, in the neighborhood, or on Forrester Lane. Remaining work after this meeting is to complete the design, and then we'll still keep the community involved on the different steps in progress. Quick summary of the project need. This is part of a requirement from the American with Disabilities Act, where we have to create accessible parking to public facilities, including parks and trails. The town of Yountville's already accepted ADA evaluation plan. These two parks are already set to get these improvements. We're actually behind on that. They were projected to receive these improvements in years 1 through 4. We're now in year 7, but we do have funds now to be able to proceed with the project. Project need. This is a map of our trail system here in town. And you see Weirs Park and Forrester Park here. And the trail at Weirs Park has that pedestrian bridge that connects directly to the trail system, which includes accessible sidewalks and then actual trail paths within the town and the parks, along with the need to create an accessible parking stall at each park. It's also for the connectivity to the park trails or to the town trails. Quick recap of the community meeting number 1, the feedback we received on the design. And again, this recording is on the website. The original designs had parallel parking, and we had received feedback to make them both pull-in parking. On Weirs Park, create that pull-in parking and meander through the park to make it look less industrial. And I'll kind of go into a little bit more detail on that when I go through the renderings. And then at Forrester Park, to use the existing landscaping where the Forrester Park sign is as the pull-in parking to not take up so much street parking that's available. And I'll explain those more with the renderings. It might be a little bit clearer looking at the renderings. So Weirs Park, the first design option that we showed in the first community meeting was this one you see here. It's a parallel parking stall closer to the trail entrance, where there's currently an ADA ramp. We removed that and put stairs in here. The parking stall would go here. The access would be right next to the stall, up this ramp to the pedestrian trail that leads to the bridge. Again, these are renderings. So the concrete you see here fanning out isn't exactly where we're going to construct out there. This was just for the rendering, but this is where the original design had the parking stall going. And we would need to create this elevated ramp up because, as many of you know, in that area, that park has steep grades. So to cut into it and not have to keep chasing the grade to flatten it, we have to create this ramp up with this wall to create that compliant ramp up to the bridge. This is an aerial view of it, and I have a better view of it to kind of show the impacts to the park on the next slide. But I also wanted to show the revised design from the first community meeting. So that meandering walkway through the park, this is what it's referring to. So some of the feedback we got from the first meeting was this was too industrial looking, and that if we kind of meander it out, it would look less impactful and we wouldn't have to build this wall up and the pull-in parking. So what we did is we had the pull-in parking on this side so we can meander that walkway back. And again, this is a rendering, so if it doesn't show it clearly or it shows it too close to the creek, it is a rendering. If this design's chosen, we'll definitely make sure that we aren't creating any hazards to pedestrians or to people with accessibility, disability issues that are using it. We'll make it a safe walkway. And it's meandering through. And because we're elongating the ramp or the walkway, we don't need to create the retaining wall. And this is the aerial view of what those impacts would be. So for the first option 1 design, I do have this drawing. I don't have it for the second design. So this shows the actual footprint of the project. And again, this is still in design phase, still rendering. So this might not be exactly what it would look like. So that ramp that's existing right now, that's around this location, that would get removed. This would be constructed here, connecting and making this walkway up to the pedestrian bridge, ADA compliant. And this whole area here is the park that won't be impacted. So all this stays the same. We're just creating this accessible parking stall here. And I also included this view of it on the poster boards that are out there in the park right now. It's an 11 by 17 that I stapled onto the boards. So if you were able to go out there in the park, you may have seen this already. And now for Forrester Park. The design for meeting number 1 for Forrester, also doing a parallel parking stall. This is the landscaped area. And again, these are renderings, so it wouldn't necessarily have some of these components here. Once we actually finalize the design, we'd adjust what needed to be to actually make this entrance and accessibility to the sidewalk available. And the feedback we got from the first community meeting is to make it a pull-in parking to not have such a large area impacted for this parallel stall. So we did revise it to look like this. And again, rendering with final design, we'd have to adjust the beginning of the stall, the location of the actual sidewalk. But one of the requirements is to create an accessible path to the sidewalk back here in the trails. And that also goes for Weirs Park. And these are the aerial views of both designs. Project updates. This is just for continuing updates to the project on our website. So this is what the project page looks like. And here's kind of a breakdown of how to access it, but I'll do a screen share and show you how to actually get there. So let me pull this up. So if you go to, no, they still have it open, I do not. You go to townofyountville.com, Department and Services, which is on here when I say Department Services, that's what I'm referring to. You hover over, go to Public Works. And right now, because the project's active, there's 2 locations to find it. So it's right now on the current Public Works page. We have the community meeting alerts. And here's the link to the actual project website. And here's where you find a link to the first community meeting. It's a recording, so it's on YouTube, you can watch it. And then here's the actual PowerPoint presentation. Here are the renderings again. And as the project goes on, I will keep posting new information on here. What the final design chosen was, I'll outline that here. During construction, I'll put construction updates here. I'll post construction pictures, contact information. So I'll put all that here. Once this project is done or moved from the main alerts page, it can also be found in the capital improvement program page. So we'll put that here under project updates or new project. Please keep in mind, we're in the process of updating our website and changing platforms. It'll still look very similar and be the same, go to departments and services, public works. You still follow that process, but it just might look differently. And I will try to make this larger and a little bit easier to see. But here is a project website. And if anybody wants a direct link, please let me know and I'll send it out. Now I'll go back to the Google Earth view because I will need that as I talk through some of the project information. Okay, so that's how you find our project updates throughout the rest of this project. Questions or comments, but first I wanted to go over some of the questions and comments I've received for this project. So I collected some of the emails I received, some of the phone calls I had, and placed them on here. And I'll make this available on the website as well. And if anybody wants this PDF, I can send that to them also. So the first one I had, again, please mark me down as a definite no to the Three Weirs Park location. The curb cut that was installed along the width of repaving was all that was needed for someone in a wheelchair, mobility scooter, or adult three-wheeler to enjoy the park. The giant blue parking space is an eyesore and unnecessary. Leave the grass and trees alone. So this project has to move forward. It's a ADA, American with Disabilities Act requirement. And we did receive grant funds specifically for this work. So now what we're trying to do is find the best design solution for this project. One that fits within the neighborhood, is as least impactful as possible, but still meets the American with Disability Act requirements that we have to meet. So we're legally required to meet this. This project does have to move forward. And that's why we included it in our ADA transition plan that was adopted in 2015. Another comment, total waste of money, disabled may fall into creep, waste of park space, please stop the silly plan. And again, we're legally required to do this, but we did receive grant funds for this project. So we received money to do this work. We have, it's not necessarily call it free money, but we did receive additional money. We're not using our own town funds, we're using state funds to build this project. So, and it has to go to this location. We can't use it for other improvements. Looking at Forrester Park proposal, disabled driver would park in the designated spot and then have to use the existing parking shoulder to access the path in the park. Why can't this be the same situation at Three Weirs Park? Here's my response here, but a little bit easier to see visually. So let me open up the Google Earth. So that comment was for the pull-in parking over here. So it's saying, why can't we use this area here as an accessible pathway for the accessibility access up to here? Why do we have to create an additional walkway? And this right here that's currently out there, this raised asphalt shoulder, is not a walkway, it's parking. So if we were to make this the accessible parking stall, this would have to formally be sidewalk. Maybe not necessarily concrete, but have to be sidewalk, and parking wouldn't be allowed there. So we're trying not to remove any additional parking. We're just trying to provide one accessible parking stall. And that's why we have to create an additional walkway up to this path. And that's, again, specifically if we end up using this design here.
Rosalba, this is Carlton. The other potential issue there is the pathway from the street to the trail is currently exceeding ADA grades. So to get folks on an ADA pathway to the trail would require some additional work to that pathway as well.
Okay, thank you. And that was Carlton, our designer. The next comment, I'd like to point out that we have 2 rear parks at each end of Yountville. I checked out where the handicap parking is for the park in South Yountville. It is at the entire end of the park. May I suggest that you take some of the money you want to spend and invest in an additional handicap parking spot at the beginning of that real park, the south end of Yountville, which would make access much easier for someone who would like to attend the performances that happen there. And although this comment isn't directly associated with Forrester or Three Weirs, I did want to include it because the town currently has a project that we're hoping to move forward in the next couple of months that will provide an accessible stall at Veterans Park. So we are aware that the accessible stall that's currently there isn't compliant and isn't in a good location. So we are actively working on creating a new one that meets all the same requirements that we're trying to meet at these 2 locations. And we're using completely different funds for that project because, like I said, the money we received for these 2 parking stalls at Three Weirs and Forrester were part of a grant. They're specifically for this project. The one at Three Weirs could be placed at the other end and along the berm, which goes directly to the bridge and walkway without having to change the beautiful park. And this one, again, I'm including some of these because the feedback's great. And some of the feedback goes to, this is kind of what we're trying to do with the design number 1 at 3 Weirs Park. So this footprint kind of really shows that, where we try to get as close to the walkway that's already existing there and try to make the impact to the park as minimal as possible. I just think the money that has been allotted to this can be used for something else. Again, I just really want to emphasize we received grant money. We're not using our town money, we're using grant money to fund this project, and it's specific for this project. And then this next one, something to kind of help the town with how to reach residents. One of the comments I received are there are many neighbors that do not live in their homes full-time, that have not received notices, don't know how to participate in a Zoom call, or for that matter, know what's going on. By your own admission, flyers were placed on doors, which would explain why so many residents did not receive your notices. Before the first community meeting, we mailed out the flyers to any addresses associated with that location. So if a home had 2 addresses, one for mailing and one the actual location, we mailed them to both. And we put door hangers up. We wanted to make sure to try to reach out to everybody. Some of the feedback we received after that was that it was excessive, that we really only need to do door hangers. And so for this meeting, we did door hangers, and we're still trying to learn on how to better improve how we access everybody, because there are so many second homeowners who this isn't maybe their permanent home or full-time home. We want to make sure we include everybody. So this is still a learning process for us on what's the best way, door hangers, mailings. So we're still trying to figure it out. And we do appreciate the feedback, and we'll still keep growing from there. And the next one, I will not classify the area as a park. No playground, picnic tables, and 1 bench. It is a lovely addition to the Washington Park area. Many people enjoy walking by it and through it. Walking their dogs is an everyday occurrence. The green space breaks up the house nicely, which is great. I walk past this green area quite often, but it is actually a park. So the information that we have on file show that this map, when it was recorded for the subdivision, called this location a park. So 3 Weirs Park is in fact a park. I know a handful of people don't actually refer to it as 3 Weirs Park, but that's what we have officially called it and are calling it 3 Weirs Park, but it is designated a park. The proposed design is unsightly and adds a walking path that is on a pretty steep incline, which currently is not handicap friendly. It seems that a handicap designated parking spot in the curb area by the bridge access would be more aesthetically pleasing, as well as more common sense design. And again, great feedback. Really like hearing this, because we had the original design that kind of fits that model for 3 Weirs Park specifically. And so we altered it a little bit, but hearing this feedback that maybe the original design might be better suited for 3 Weirs Park, again, great feedback. The graphic of the meandering walkway to the bridge is nice, but it makes the park look flat. In reality, across the large grass knoll that is much beyond the 5% grade allowed, so we require a large amount of grading and retaining walls, and possibly damage the roots of the trees at the south of the walkway. Wanted to include this one as well. The meandering one through the park would probably have more impact on the trees. We're always trying to, with any of our town projects, avoid having to remove any trees if we have to. If we don't have to, with roots, it's always easier to assess the condition of the tree once you actually dig it up. So with the walkway meandering through the park, we'd have to wait until we dug it up to see which roots were going to be impacted negatively enough to have to remove a tree. With the option number 1 at 3 Weirs Park, we would really only have to remove 1 tree that's already a little bit unhealthy. So it would be an ideal tree to remove, because it's not the healthiest tree out there. And our last one, in the graph, it looks like they're putting concrete surface with a curb on the sides of the parking space. I think using that material on the parking shoulder is only going to cause confusion and concern by the residents. Can it be black asphalt instead? So let me pull up the renderings again. So again, these renderings on both of them, they're just renderings. So I'm personally not a big fan of the really white concrete, the new concrete that's put out there. So if we can't use asphalt because of ADA compliance issues, we can definitely add some color to the sidewalk. So the color is definitely an option we can do. We have this kind of sandstone, kind of reddish color on our park trails. That's an option. We could also include an additive that's called lamp black, where it darkens the color of the concrete to make it look a little bit closer to the asphalt, to have it blend in as well. So those changing the color of the concrete, if we have to use concrete, is definitely an option. So I wanted to make that clear to everybody as well. I believe that was the end of the kind of some of the main comments I received, and I wanted to highlight. And I'll make these available to the public. I'll make these available on the website. And again, if you want me to email them to you, I can make them available as well. And I will stop sharing my screen. And let me open up the chat. And if anybody has any questions, please raise your hands and I will unmute you. And we can, okay, I see the first one coming in from Donna Bruner and Jeannie Title. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Okay, see you're unmuted, but I cannot hear you. Okay, we cannot hear you if you are speaking, but if you want to put it in the chat, I will read whatever you put in there. I'll give you another minute. Okay, I'll leave your hand up and I'll come back to you, but I'll go to the next hand that's raised. Carrie Hayes, let me, okay, you're not able to talk. You want to?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay. Can you explain? So I understand the purpose of this, the 3 Weirs in particular, that parking spot is for connectivity to the whole park trail. Do I have that right so far?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason I'm raising it is I'm thinking that there's I guess I would say, less intrusive possible location for another ADA parking spot. And if you are, so imagine you are walking west on Fennell from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and you come to the very small bridge. On the right at the very entrance to the trail is what seems to be a perfectly viable parking space. Is already a parking space and could be converted to ADA compliant. So it's right at the beginning of the field, the elementary school field, and the current trail. So can you help me understand why 3 Weirs Park, but not a site like that?
So with this particular project, we do want to create accessible parking, yes, to access the trail, but to also access park facilities. And I understand there's some different opinions or difference of opinions on what type of park facility this is and who actually would benefit from accessing it. But we do want to provide access to the park and the trails. Regarding distance from those locations, and we can look into the specifics, but there is a certain requirement of distance from the spot they're trying to make accessible.
So, okay, so if that's the case, then could we meet for a walk and talk about this? Because that parking spot I'm talking about on Fennell is actually much closer to the actual trail.
To the trail, yes, but not necessarily to 3 Weirs Park.
Well, no, of course, yes, definitely not. But so, okay, take 3 Weirs Park out of the equation. What leads the town not to put an ADA compliant parking space at the site I'm talking about? Or, yeah, what leads to the town not putting a space there as well?
We could look into putting additional spaces on Yount Street. There are some locations on Yount Street, and what the big difference is that the sidewalk on Yount Street is accessible.
I'm not talking about Yount Street, Rosalva, I'm talking about Fennell.
Fennell, so same with Fennell to a degree. So Fennell has access to the trail much further from 3 Weirs, but it has Fennell itself has accessible sidewalk, and it has the trail leading all the way from Fennell to the Three Weirs pedestrian